Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative McNamara, I'm just asking you simple questions. I'm not spinning anything. The fact is that the agency says there's no $90 million savings. It's going to have to be allocated out across the agencies. The agency says that's a 4% cut. I thought we'd gotten to the point this session where we're going to actually rely on the nonpartisan agency staff to give us numbers and how these are going to be implemented. If not, we're going backwards again to last week where we make up numbers. But the 4% cut is on top of what you already have. So I asked you first, can they handle it? And you didn't answer. Then I asked you, if they have to take it and they can't handle it, what are you going to do? And then you started complaining that I love government so much. A speech remarkably similar to the one I heard at the beginning of session when you froze all employees' wages, including everybody that works here. But that isn't the point. The point is, as a committee chair, as a legislator, your job is to make sure that the missions of the agencies are funded or changed to match the funding that's available. And if you don't have any understanding of what will happen to their ability to protect the environment, to speed up permitting processes, to make sure that we have great wildlife habitat. If you're not prepared and you're not willing to do the work to understand the impact of your cuts in those agency areas, you shouldn't be a committee chair. That's your job. And just pretending, and you know, I don't know if it's you're ignoring it, you're pretending, or you don't want to acknowledge it, but the budget bills are all, well, they're sort of real. They're at least all going to get passed, I think, by the legislature. And they have a cumulative impact. If you pass one bill with a 1% cut, and then you pass a second bill with a 4% cut, that's a 5% cut. Just because they're in two separate bills doesn't mean that one of them doesn't exist. It's all there. And if I were you, I would be more concerned about what Representative Lanning and your leadership are trying to do with all of your committee budgets. All the fiscal chairs, all the finance chairs are having their pockets picked by a State Department's bill that results in a 4% cut to all those agencies. I don't know why you wouldn't want to do that yourself, but if you don't want to acknowledge that it's real, then you're leaving the policy missions of those agencies at the whim of the commissioners. And you're hoping that they're able to do the work and figure out a way to patch it together, and you're abdicating your responsibility to make sure that the impact of your budget reductions can be handled by the agencies. And if they can't be handled by the agencies, what will be the impact on their ability to actually deliver services? So, Representative McNamara, it's not spinning to say that a cut on top of a cut is two cuts. It's just, all I'm asking you is, are you ready to handle it? Is the agency going to be able to handle it? What are they going to be able to do with it? And Representative McNamara, I mean, this is for the state government bill. Our state workforce is smaller now than it was 10 years ago. There are fewer people who work for the state now than 10 years ago. That isn't directly to your bill, but that's the issue you raised, and it's something that we constantly have to remind ourselves. We have a lean workforce, and in fact, state government and those employees have participated, much like the rest of the economy has participated in retrenchment. That's a fact. That's a fact. So, Representative McNamara, I just don't understand why you would not want to understand the impact of all these cuts on these agencies. I know you want to do good things. I know you've been dealt a rotten hand of cards by your leadership for targets. That's difficult, but you still have to do the work to understand what Representative Lanning and Representative Downey's bills are going to do to the agencies that you care about. And to the last point, returning to this question of how much of Bowser's funding comes from the legacy amendment. I think you said it was correct. I said about 75%. I think you said 56 million. I don't know what the percentage is, but it's a substantial majority of Bowser's budget now comes from legacy, and that money historically came from the general fund. The constitutional language says, it doesn't say activities can't be supplanted. It says that it can't supplant traditional funding sources. So it seems to me that unless you have expanded But maybe we have. Maybe we've expanded, we've tripled Bowser's size in the last 2 years. That's the only way you're not supplanting those activities, by these deep reductions to Bowser and layering on top of that significant legacy funds. I think you're at a real issue of having violated the Constitution by continuing down this path. And the problem isn't that you're unwilling to make cuts. You're obviously willing to do that. The problem is you're unwilling to raise revenue to make sure that those cuts don't affect the agency's ability to operate. So, Mr. Speaker, I think this bill is not, this conference report is not acknowledging the fact that the State Department's bill will significantly further reduce the agency budgets. These interactions between these bills are not clear. Misinformation is being provided to you about the impact. And if I were you, I would not want this conference report adopted until I understood the impact of an additional 15% employee reduction and an additional 4% budget reduction on those agencies. I know you care about them. I would expect you to vote no and go back and figure out the real story about what's going on in the state government bill and how it's going to affect the agencies that you work hard to make sure they can do their job. So, Mr. Speaker, I'd urge a red vote.